Hello and welcome to this week's Content Tea. We have some very interesting stuff to discuss today. Thank you very much for joining me. Even if you're watching the replay, welcome. And if you're already used to watching these videos, you know the drill, probably. But for those of you who don't, I am Stephanie Fiteni. I'm a content marketing strategist and a traffic growth coach. And every week I have the Content Tea Party where we talk about social media, we talk about the latest features on social, we talk about blogging, we talk about traffic generation, we talk about basically anything that's going to help you create leads and clients. And once a week, I also like to ask the ladies in my group. I have a Facebook group about lead generation and traffic growth, and there I would ask someone to post a link if they want to have their website reviewed. And today we're going to review Sylvia's website. So we'll be seeing that in the second half of the video. I am still relaxing today. I'm a little bit rushed off my feet because I just had lunch before this video, so I'm still sort of relaxing into the office, and we definitely need to put the air conditioning on because it's such a hot day. Okay, so let's have a look at what happened this week in social media. And I think the most impressive thing that actually really hit me in the media this week, in the online marketing news section, is that Google is actually going to start paying journalists for their content. I really think this is going to change the way PR actually happens online, and it's also, I think, going to help journalists sort of have a different way to monetize. You've probably noticed a lot of international websites. Have just a second, let's see. Actually, I still had my headphones plugged in. Do let me know if you can hear me or not, just to make sure that the sound works. Okay, so do let me know. And in the meantime, okay, so we were talking about the journalists. So this is quite an incredible advancement, I think. You've probably noticed a lot of newspapers have been struggling. They have had problems making money. Of course, over the last 4 months, a lot of businesses have suffered. But journalism, in spite of the fact that it's really needed, and of course we need especially honest and non-aligned journalists to keep telling us the truth about our politicians and the big business deals and everything that happens in our countries, so that there can be transparency for the people as much as possible. So I really think that Google, by actually paying people to publish, and by paying sort of people for quality content, I think it's going to give journalists a different avenue, a different opportunity. I have noticed, in fact, even in local newspapers, where there have been notices sort of where newspapers are actually asking people to pay, trying to come up with donation models, trying to come up with, supports, membership models to try and make more money. So I think this could really have reverberations in the online PR and in the journalism industry in the long term. I don't know if it's going to be so for bloggers as well, but maybe bloggers that would be involved in the media or are somehow brand or PR aligned, maybe it would affect them as well. And another feature that I wanted to definitely share with you today was that Facebook has added a new warning which might actually affect bloggers. So according to Social Media Today, I'm going to actually share the link with you because I think there's an interesting pop-up here that I'd like you to see, because of course Facebook do not release all their features all over the world at the same time. They release it piecemeal, a bit here and there, and they start off sort of with the different countries. So maybe some of us haven't seen this yet. So as you can see here, there is continue or go back. So Facebook is going to start informing people when an article is older than 3 months old. And as someone who blogs evergreen content, that's sort of, I try to make my content as long lasting as possible and always stays educational. And so I find this a little bit disturbing, because if you're going to ask someone, tell someone when they try to click on an article, hey, this is older than 3 months old, kind of you may want to consider where it's coming from. Then of course it's going to reduce the amount of traffic to my website, because some people may think, it's a bit old. Of course, 3 months is not old when it comes to talking about SEO, but they're going to start this specifically with the news publishing sites. So in that sense, it does maybe help clear out maybe when there is news that is old and shouldn't be reshared because it's old news, and sometimes it has a similar title to something that is happening now. So from a news journalism perspective, I understand. I really hope it doesn't affect, again, bloggers in the long term, because this could have some reverberations on people's traffic. So that's sort of one very interesting feature, which in our part of the world, I'm in Malta, so sort of the bottom tip of Europe, in my part of the world, this has not been rolled out yet. But of course, because I'm very curious, I'm really looking forward to seeing it and seeing how this works out. If you're interested in actually knowing whether they will roll it out in the rest of the world and how the experiment goes, you can check out Facebook's blog. Facebook actually has a blog and they inform people about these updates. Okay, so that's enough for interesting news. There is actually another interesting piece of news, but I had already seen it before. So, and I don't believe that most of you on Facebook would be interested in this. TikTok actually now has a business platform, and it's not a separate platform at all. It just basically means that just like Pinterest did, I believe a couple of years back, you now have an advertising platform. I'm not particularly excited about their service. I actually applied to be part of this platform weeks ago, and I have not heard anything from them. So I do not bode very well for it now. But maybe now that it's open publicly, maybe things will start speeding up. And as soon as I have tried those ads, I will let you know what the advantages are and how they actually work. I'm expecting them to be a lot cheaper than Facebook ads, so we'll see. So if your target audience is younger than 30, maybe we can talk about that again in the next episode. So let's move to today's website review. And what we're going to do, we're just going to go through Silvia Giunta's website, and we're going to have a look at her website. She has also sent me some questions because she couldn't be here with us today. So I will actually answer her questions. And then, of course, there might be some questions that follow up, and she can put them under the video later, and you can put them under the video later as well. So if you have questions about what I'm talking about, or even stuff that maybe I am not talking about, but you know that I do, anything related to websites, blogging, anything related to traffic and lead generation and online business, if you've got questions about that, pop them under the video, because in the last section of the video, after I review Silvia's website, I will pop in and I will answer all your questions. Okay, so obligatory cup of tea. This is a tea party after all. And yes, advertising mug today. It's not product placement. So let's start by sharing the screen. So let's go back to the screen. So this is Silvia's website, and okay, so it looks like I cannot share it whilst also reviewing the questions. So I'm gonna pop into the group, which is my group, which is called, I might as well just show you. So it's called More Leads and Google Traffic with Content and SEO. And over here, we are looking at Silvia's question. Okay. So Sylvia's saying, I have a few questions for today, if that's okay. I would like to make some changes on my site. So she wants to talk about prices, so reprices on my site. Would you suggest to have all the prices very clearly explained? I am moving towards packages at the moment, and I only have an introductory call and no prices on the site currently. So Sylvia only has an introductory call button, and she doesn't have prices. Would you find that annoying as a client? And that's a very plausible question, because I would suppose I am actually target audience. So I will be seeing this not just from a web perspective, but also from a client perspective. And then there's another question about the freebies. So regarding freebies, I have 2 at the moment. Is that confusing? Okay, so let's have a look at how this works out on the site so that I can go through your questions and answer them. Okay, so first things first, I love the color. I love this kind of shade of aubergine and the way it works with the green. I like that a lot. I like the fact that you have a start here page. They're becoming more and more popular. I don't have one on my page yet, but that is something that's definitely very interesting. Okay, so let's have a look at what happens on the home page. So yes, so I like the way it goes in right away. She is talking to her ideal client. So right away, as soon as you scroll down, so when you land, you see a smile, and Sylvia's making eye contact. That is always recommended. It looks really good. And then she's saying very clearly what she said. She is homeopathy, nutrition, and neurodevelopment for anxiety. And she does video consultations available. There's only just one thing missing. So here there is what you do, there isn't what you do it for. So, you know, if I had to really nitpick, I would say, let me know who you do it for. Do you do it for, you know, you probably do it for everyone. So you kind of need to find a way of saying, you know, for both adults and children, perhaps, or, you know, for women who suffer from anxiety or stuff like that. Okay, so I like the way you then go in and speak to your ideal clients right away. So do you sometimes wish there would be a different way to overcome your feelings of anxiety other than pills or prescription medicine? So there you go. So she is speaking directly, and just with the first line, I already know what her approach is going to be, and I like that. I like that very much, because that definitely draws me. What I would suggest is, if it's possible, I would say make the light gray a black, because I find this a little bit difficult to read on my screen. Now, of course, everyone has different screens, and this is the difficulty a little bit with websites. When you create a website, people see the color according to the quality of their screen, and also sort of the age, sort of when it came out. You know, like the latest Mac screen is going to make it look different to the one that was issued 4 years ago. And of course, different PC brands are going to show you the color in a slightly different way. So in this case, I would say I would rather err on the side of darker. So I would go with black, definitely. If you really don't want to go with black because of your color scheme, you may want to go sort of with the darkest gray that you're comfortable with. Okay, and then Sylvia has 3 entry points here, which I absolutely love. Very good. She has events and talks, so I already know she can be booked. There is, of course, her blog where I can learn more, and then success stories, which I would imagine would be a little bit like, you know, case studies, or I'm gonna actually pop into that one first. Okay, that's interesting. I thought that I clicked. Well, this is interesting, actually. It might be... Okay, so I clicked success stories, and I think it's taking me to local events. All right, so there might be a little mistake with the link of that button. I'm just going to try and click events to see if this one links me somewhere else. Okay, it links me to local events as well. So maybe I am guessing that... Let's switch this off because it's cold already. So maybe I'm guessing that maybe the success stories page is not ready and it's just temporarily linked to something else. What I would say is just maybe link, if it's not ready yet, you could link it to an empty page that has the correct name, which is called Success Stories, and then say, success stories coming soon. In the meantime, check out, and give them a list of blogs or something interesting to read so they stay on your website. Okay, so let's have a look at the blog, which is of course my absolute favorite part of any website, because that's where all the juicy stuff is. Okay, how to tame anxiety in lockdown. Of course, perfect title for the times we are in. And of course, yes, you must have been really busy, Sylvia, because this is so useful. Excellent. Okay, so this is the blog. Okay, so when I click, it goes to /blog, and then okay. Now this is a common problem. When I click the title, I would assume that it's going to take me to the blog post where I can read the whole thing, but it pops up the image. This is very common with WordPress templates, but okay. Oh, all right. So I can see what's happening here. So what's happening is that you are actually seeing, when you go to blog, you're seeing all the blog posts after each other, and they are not excerpts. Okay, so they're not like a summary of the blog and then you get to click on it, which was my first impression. Okay, so it looks like this one is, and then this one has a read more button. Okay, so there's definitely something to improve here. It's a little bit confusing the way the blog appears. So one thing I would definitely improve is the navigation of the blog. I can already see that if I landed on the blog page, it would be great if I had, maybe, even if it's just the images and the title, and an introduction of sort of what I'm going to find in the blog. With my blog, I have actually taken this very recently, in the last couple of weeks. I have taken this actually to a little bit of a new level. I'm going to show you actually what I did. So when you click on blog on my site, I have given a visual representation of the categories and the subcategories in my blog. And I actually already have a placeholder for a section that's coming about tech tools, which currently does not exist by itself. So I decided to make this visual, but also useful to Google. And the blog page is very important because it's the page where Google is going to go through your main menu, because as you can see, it appears here at the very top. And then Google, and of course all the other search engines, but of course we all know Google is the smartest, so I use that as sort of the search engine benchmark. And they can go in, and so people will go in and visually see what's happening in my blog. And then there are links to the subcategories directly in my blog, so that when Google goes in that page through the links, it will find my other pages. What I also like, which I have of course nabbed from someone who has done this before, not an original idea at all, but I love when there is a little welcome at the top of the blog that then says, what you're going to find in this blog. Now, you don't necessarily have to do it like this. If you want, you can just have, a page like, for instance, digital strategy, where you have, just one line of introduction, and then you go straight into the blog posts. In this case, I have paginated my blog posts, which means I have used a feature in WordPress that turns the long list of blogs into different pages. The reason why I have done this is when you have a very long page and you're loading a lot of blogs after each other, when people try to see your page on mobile, it will take ages to load, because until it sort of paints the first screen that you actually see, it may be still loading so much stuff beyond the screen. And what happens sometimes is that you may try to navigate a website and you think, hey, the button is not working on my mobile. But what might be happening is that it's still loading. That's why it's not allowing you to interact. So keeping sort of your blog posts in different pages is going to stop a very long loading time for your category or your main blog page. just in terms of SEO, Sylvia, and I'm gonna recommend this because I already know what you do, and I already know what your main categories are gonna be. In fact, if we go to the main homepage, you have already told me that your main 3 categories are going to be homeopathy, nutrition, and probably also dealing with anxiety. So these are going to be the 3 windows where people are struggling with something. They go to Google, and when they punch in those keywords, they will come to your blog. That's what we want, right? So what I would say is I would use those 3 categories a little bit like these here. So make them my 3 categories in the blog. And then, of course, organize your content based on topic inside those categories. And what this will do is it will help Google understand that you're really highly relevant for those 3 things, because the more content you put into those 3 buckets, the more Google will understand that you are relevant and that you have recent content for that. A little trick to help Google find all your blogs and to help Google actually come to your website even more often than it already does is to have the 3 recent blog posts on your homepage. And I am going to check if you have them, and you do. Fantastic. Excellent. I hadn't scrolled this far yet, but I can see them, and they're really great because you also have a little snippet here of the article, so that's really, really good. Okay, excellent. Very good. So I can see what you were talking about, Sylvia, about booking a free call. I actually think that this is really smart. I love the way, you know, this image with this green kind of cuts through the white and attracts attention to the button over here, the aubergine button. That works really well for me. The 2 freebies. Now, yes, I did actually also look at your other pages, and I realized that even for the newsletter, you have 2 sections. So you are, of course, splitting your audience into 2 sections. I personally would not put the 2 freebies near each other. I would potentially... Let's see, has your sleep pattern changed? Okay, so one of them is directly related to sleep patterns, anxiety, and the other one is the 5 most common migraine triggers. Okay, so we have people who are struggling with sleep and anxiety, and people who are struggling with migraines. What I would do is I would try, and maybe if you really want to put them both on the same page, maybe separate them, put one at the top and one at the bottom. But I would try to recommend that you actually try to pick one. And I know it's really quite hard, but if you collect some statistics about your website, you will find it really easy to take a decision. So here's how I suggest to go about it. Set up Google Search Console. Google Search Console is like a tiny part of Google Analytics. It's a free service. Let me show you which one it is. So it's not Google Console, it's Google Search Console, because they are actually different tools. So when you go to this specific page that you can see, the Google Search Console, you can log into your Gmail account and it will take you to a dashboard. Now, you're not going to see any statistics in that dashboard, but what you can do is you can put in the URL of your website. It will ask you to place a small file on your site, and then it will verify. And from that day onwards, you will be able to see all the ranking statistics of your page. I much prefer that to Google Analytics because it gives you very little data. It just tells you which of your blog posts and your pages on your website are ranking, and it will also tell you, how many times they appeared in search results, what position they had, and how many people actually clicked on them. So what is Google Search Console going to help you find out? Okay, so Google Search Console will help you find out which keywords and which pages are bringing more traffic to your website. And then you will be able to see what kind of keyword is going to be best. So if you see that maybe you're getting more traffic organically for things around anxiety, then you keep the one about anxiety and sleep patterns. If you feel that maybe you have more traffic connected to migraines, then you can use that one. It doesn't mean that you completely remove the other freebie, but maybe you can find a secondary place for it. And I already have an idea for that because I've had to take that decision on my website. So as you can see, my main freebie, which I am going to change actually because the statistics of my site have changed a little bit in the last 3 to 4 months, the keywords that are driving the traffic. So I actually going to change my freebie based on the keywords that are driving traffic to my site. However, what I wanted to show you is that then when you go into my blog, so this is my main freebie, and then when you go into the blog, I have then another freebie on the side, which I knew doesn't convert as well as the other one. So the other one is definitely sort of more important to my audience, but it's kind of still converts pretty well. So I really wanted to have the second one as well. And it also tells me, they're two different sides. So just like, for instance, your audience is divided into sleep pattern and anxiety and migraine, this one, there is one about lead generation and one about traffic generation. So it's kind of very similar. So you would need to decide which one. And this one appears next to all the blogs, and it also gets quite a few registrations. So it's great, There's one thing you can also do with WordPress, which I think is really, really smart, and is something I'm going to take advantage of in the next few months. And that is, you can actually have one freebie for each category in your blog. So once you have broken down your blog into homeopathy, nutrition, and anxiety, and things related to it, then you can actually have a freebie for each. And when people land on a blog post that's about that topic, they can have the freebie right there. Okay, another tip, which maybe you want to do temporarily. Maybe you don't want to touch the rest of the site just yet, because I know that you mentioned in your comments that it takes a long time to edit stuff on the site, and I completely understand. What you could do is just remove one and leave one on the homepage and turn the other one into a pop-up, which you can create with a tool like MailerLite, or one of these free pop-up tools like Hello Bar or something of the sort. So you could still have them both on the homepage in a way, but kind of do it in a different way. Put them in different places. Okay, so that was one question answered, and we did review a few other places, but I really want to now move on to talk about your question about pricing, because ironically, I think that is priceless. Okay, one more sip of tea, because I talk too much. Okay, so yes, I'm just gonna revisit the question because I just need a bit of a refresher. So Sylvia was asking, would you suggest to have all the prices very clearly explained? And I'm moving towards packages at the moment, and I only have an introductory call and no prices right now. Okay, so she doesn't have prices yet, and she's going to start using packages. Okay, so I am just out of curiosity gonna pop into the work with me section so that I can see what there is there right now. Okay. Okay, so Sylvia is explaining what her objectives are and how she works. A little bit about homeopathy. She says she sees herself as a health detective. I really like that. Okay, and she finds, of course, patterns. And here's a list of the remedies that she offers, which is anything from lifestyle, homeopathy, herbal, stress management techniques, exercise. So we can see it's all very, very natural. And then there's a button for the discovery call, which is far too small. I would definitely make that bigger. I know it's a bright color, but I would still make that really, really big. It needs to be, for me, the biggest thing on the page. Obviously not bigger than a mobile screen, because then you will have problems. But make it a nice chunky button. So I think that in terms of pricing, it can make a difference. So as an end user, there are different types, and kind of you need to really understand in terms of pricing whether it makes a big difference to the audience that you're serving. So to cut a long story short, my advice would always be to test whether it's going to make a difference. But maybe you have been in business long enough to already know your audience and maybe have a bit of an idea of what they would respond to. I remember actually running ads as a test to different pages, where I had one page that was actually selling a course years ago. This course was aimed at people who are who are still studying. So we assumed they wouldn't have very much money because they were students. And we ran the other page to people who, were in their 40s, fully employed, already had a job, and sort of just needed the course to keep themselves abreast of current developments. Now, funnily enough, we also ran some tests to see how the ads would perform on generic audiences. And what we found out is that the advert that had the price, which we actually used for people who were older, who we knew had more money, ended up performing better with students. So the people who actually came through the ad that had the price on it came from people who we knew were more price conscious. So this was a little bit confusing, but from the trends that I have seen lately with the corona wave, I can definitely confirm that if usually people might perceive you as expensive, or people worry about the prices you charge, or maybe your audience is price conscious, I would put my prices there. I know it sounds like, to some people it might sound like you're actually, going against the grain, and you're actually, kind of doing the opposite. But what tends to happen is, and I have seen this quite a lot actually in the last month or two. In the last couple of months, practically every person that has got in touch with me through the website or jumped on a call with me has just bought my packages. And the reason is, I believe that people who are not sure how much they can afford to spend at the moment are actually not coming to the call. So it would also be a decision of how many requests are you getting. So how many requests are you expecting to get? Because I think at the moment people are more price conscious, and if you put the price, it will probably improve the amount of people who get in touch with you. But of course, it may not be the case if your prices are much higher than average, because it is also a time where people are price conscious. I can see that people at the moment are more into value. So if they know they're going to get really good value for what they're buying, you're still going to sell. And of course, in this case, we're talking about health issues, and we're talking about resolving them in a natural way. So I would say that, as long as it's more or less industry average and you are the person they want to work with, I think putting the prices out there is definitely not going to put people off. I would definitely try it. So my suggestion would be, try it for, at least a quarter, so at least 3 months. If you want to leave it longer, try it for 6 months, see how it goes. If you see that there isn't much feedback, or that maybe people are not jumping on a call, then what you can do is then change the goal of your website a little bit, and instead of promoting the price, try to promote the call a lot more. But if I were in your position, I would definitely put my prices online. In fact, for my own site as well, I have not had prices so far, because I actually have quite a lot of packages, and I don't want to confuse people by putting all of them online. But I am actually considering having at least 1 or 2 taster packages where people can, work with me. And in fact, this might be a strategy that you may want to use, Sylvia. So maybe you have a couple of smaller packages that, people can try so that they can see the value that you deliver and they can see what a nice experience it is to work with you. And then maybe they can move on to a higher price later. So, or a bigger package. But maybe you can use, what we call a foot in the door product, something that looks like it's really affordable and you're giving a lot of value for it. And, it makes the price look good, although it still positions you as an expert and it still positions you, of course, as the professional that you are. So you don't want to sell yourself cheap just to sort of make this package move. What you want to do is make it more affordable, even if you give less time or maybe a little bit less value than in your more expensive packages, but they can experience what it's like to work with you. So I think that would encourage people, if there is an affordable package, to definitely work with you. Now, of course, your audience, and I look forward to actually hearing your feedback. And if you have further questions, feel free to ask as well. And of course, also, if you're not Sylvia and you are following this live, please feel free to drop your questions in the next few minutes. I'm going to take a breath. I don't take too many of those. And a cup of tea. As you probably noticed, and especially for those of you who have been following for some time, I do like to squeeze in as much information as possible, especially when I'm doing video, because it's just so easy for people to watch it over and over again. So I believe that you can never have, too much value in a video, because you can watch it as many times as you want. Okay, so now I am actually going to pop into my Facebook page, and I am going to have a look to see if there are any questions there. Because I am using Ecamm Live and it's actually not showing me any comments, which is very interesting. Okay, so I can see Maria's here. Hi Maria, I am terribly sorry I didn't see you before. Because Ecamm Live doesn't show me, or actually I really believe there is a way of doing that. It's just that I bought the software and I just dived into doing lives with it, and I haven't really checked out all the features. So maybe I'll try and make that happen by next week, because it's such a pity to not see who's here. Okay, so Maria is asking, what is the best way to divide your blog page into categories, and what is the difference between tags and categories? Okay, and how did you do this visual? It looks great. Is it a separate landing page? Okay, so I'm not sure if I get you right, but I believe, Maria, that the question about the visual might actually be the landing page on my blog. So I'll answer your first question first. Okay, so the best place to divide your blog page into categories. Okay, so the first thing you want to know, let's see. It looks great. Okay. Is it a separate landing on my site? So okay, so I'm not sure if I get you right. The first thing you want to do is you want to choose the best about the visual might actually be your landing page on my blog. So I'll answer your first question. So you want to find keywords that obviously have okay, so the best place to divide your blog page you have into categories, a chance of ranking for, so you don't want them to be, super difficult to rank for. Okay, so the first thing you want to know, so what do you want to do then? So how are you going to break it down? When you click on blog, so I actually have sure if I get it right. The first thing you want to do is you want to choose the best about Elementor might actually be your page on my blog. Sort of say it. So I'll answer your first question. You want to find keywords that obviously have. And what it allows you to do so the best place to divide your blog page into categories or subpages, or so you don't want that to be, super difficult. I actually did this myself really simply. So what do you want to do then? So how are you going to break it down? When you click, all I did was, okay, so I actually have used visuals, right? The first thing you want to do is you want to choose the best place to read keywords. I just adapted them to sort of say it. So I'll answer your first. You want to find keywords, some imagery from what it allows you. So the best place to divide your blog page searching categories and then I just put them them together here.
I actually,
Elementor is a very easy. So what do you want to do? So how are you going to break it down? What I did was,
okay, so I
created curators, right? But I believe you have my template for I do not believe the answer is unified some imagery from what it allows you to create page don't also go searching and then I just put them a lot of work.
I actually,
Elementor is a very easy. So what do you want to do? So how are you going to break it down? What I did was, so I created curators, so but I believe you have my template for I do not believe the answer is unified some imagery from what it allows you to create page don't also go searching so then I just put them a lot of work.
I actually,
Elementor is a very easy. So what do you want to do? So how are you going to break it down? What I did was something like so I created curators, so but I believe you have my template for I do not believe the answer is unified some imagery from what it allows you to create page don't also go searching so then according to a lot of work.
I actually,
Elementor is a very easy. So what do you want to do? So how are you going to break it down? What I did was something like so I created curators, so but I believe you have my I do not believe the answer is unified some imagery from what it allows you to create page don't also go searching so then according to a lot of work.
I actually,
Elementor is a very easy. So what do you want to do? So how are you going to break it down? What I did was something like so I created curators, so but I believe you have my I do not believe the answer is unified some imagery from what it allows you to create page don't also go searching so then according to a lot of work. Elementor is a very easy. So what do you want to do? How are you going to break it down? What I did was something like so I created curators, so but I believe you have my I do not believe the answer is unified some imagery from what it allows you to create page don't also go searching so according to a lot of work. Elementor is a very easy. So how are you going to break it down? What I did was something like so I created curators, so but I believe you have my work. I do not believe the answer is unified some imagery from what it allows you to create page question again, just to make sure that I've answered it, Maria. Yes, to divide your blog page into categories. So yes, so that would be the best way to divide it. Question again, just to make sure that I've answered to all your categories. If you notice, I kind of cheated a little and I put 2 to each page. So the title is linked. And this is linked as well, and my images are linked. So that would be the best way to divide it. Question again, just to make sure that I've answered all your categories. If you notice, I kind of cheated a little, and I put 2 to each page. So the title, the second question, and I'm going to pop back in to have a look. Okay, so how did you do the visual? It looks great. This is a separate landing page. Yes, I think I already answered that question when I mentioned that I used Elementor and I built it, and I did the visuals in Canva actually. Of course, I had the template ready, but it's a very simple one and it's extremely simple, very, very similar to your basic social media image. In fact, it's a square. I believe I used the Instagram template. Okay, so thank you very much to everyone for joining. It's been a great episode, I think. I think that we have been through so much information today. I have one little thing to announce, which you're going to see me post about a lot in the next few weeks. My podcast has just been approved by Apple, so you're going to see me launch my podcast in the next week. And the podcast is called the Profitable Content Show, and of course it's about content marketing and everything online marketing that helps you get real return on investment. I believe in not doing anything that doesn't give you return on investment. So, focusing on the core of your strategy and automating everything else. So if you really like the idea of, getting your leads and making money without actually having to be on social media all the time and having to constantly create more content, then watch this space and follow also some great interviews on the podcast. The first one is with Dr. Cindy, who is a ghostwriter, and we talk about, very good if you intend to write a book, we talk about the blogging way to writing a book, which is basically how to write a book through your blog. So if you're interested, if maybe in the long run you know that you want to write a book, and at the moment you are blogging, you can bring the two together and of course do less work, because one thing will cover the other. So the first episode is going to be really interesting for you if that is what you're into. Okay, thank you, Maria. Yes, I'm very excited about the podcast. I must admit it has probably been one of the hardest things I have done, because teaching online is relatively easy compared to speaking when you cannot see people. I find the sound format is not a very natural one for me, but I know that it's a good way to help people learn, because it's a very good learning medium, because people can focus on it. It's probably the only advertising free medium left. That is why. And of course, I am dying to experiment with how well I can rank my podcast show notes. And that's something I'm going to really sink my teeth into in the next few months. So in probably about 3 to 4 months, I will be reporting back how my efforts have done. And I will teach you everything I have learned. So thank you very much for joining me today. And if you didn't manage to catch it from the top, I recommend you go and listen, because there are some great tips today, because we have had such amazing questions. Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Maria. And I will see you all next week.